Madam Chair, thank you very much, and thank you to Mr. Davis for convening this hearing. Um, Mr. Bolton, the Department of Homeland Security, under both President Trump, former President Trump, and President Biden, has said that domestic violence, violent extremism is the #1 terror threat in the country to the American people. The kind of groups that participated in the January 6th onslaught and siege against the Capitol, the racist, white nationalist, anti-government group. So we can expect that there's going to be more of this coming. And it looks like this pattern of violence is actually accelerating. So we've got to get this right. One of your flash reports examined the civil disturbance unit and identified a number of deficiencies there, including a lack of adequate policies and procedures. Do we have a dedicated full-time professional civil disturbance unit? And if not, why don't we? And do we need to change the structure of it?
Thank you, sir. The department currently, the way it's constituted, the Civil Disturbance Unit, CDU, is more or less, I would describe it as an ad hoc unit, where they will pull officers from the Uniformed Services Bureau to take up those assignments. Our recommendation is that they become a standalone unit. They become, with solid policies, procedures, to training, not just initial training. Initial training is great and wonderful. But in order to be truly effective, you've got to have that continuous education, continuous training, retraining. Those are important elements. They need to have a standalone unit, whatever size that the department deems appropriate, and that's their full-time job. And then,
all right. Now, you suggest in your report that service in this unit, at least in its ad hoc configuration today, is seen as undesirable by the Capitol Police officers. Can you explain why that would be, and what can be done to make it a more desirable assignment, and what effect it would have to create what you're suggesting, a more permanent, prepared, and professionalized civil disturbance unit?
Well, one of the ways you can actually incentivize is the department certainly has the authority to designate certain units as hazardous duty pay, where they will receive additional funds within their normal pay. You can classify as, well, back in like today, as a firearms instructor for the Secret Service, we had what was called tech pay. So it was additional to incentivize to get people to want to actually belong to that unit. And I firmly believe that when you create a specialized unit, a standalone, that receives the additional training, that receives the recognition that they are, as you would say, professionalized, that naturally is going to attract others to want to belong to an elite unit that they can take pride in, something that they can say, yes, and they have a.
Can I ask you,
sure.
is one reason that we haven't done this before, that it's maintained this ad hoc status, because we think that there's not been enough violent coordinated attacks on the Capitol to justify the creation of an independent standalone unit within the Capitol Police? Is that why it's not been done before?
I wouldn't be able to answer that, sir. We haven't conducted any kind of work that would determine the mindset of the department of why they're kept it as an ad hoc. Only thing we can do is point out that our recommendation is that they need to become a standalone, highly trained unit.
Okay.
I can't speak for them.
I appreciate that. All right, here's my final question for you. You've made a bunch of recommendations for reform at the Capitol Police. Can you highlight for us which ones you think are the most important, the most urgent, and then what you need from us as the principal committee of jurisdiction to help the department implement these reforms?
As even in my opening statement, and Chair Loughran pointed out, we need a intelligence bureau. Right now, it's considered an intelligence division. It comes under the Protective Services Bureau. It needs to be a full service, comprehensive bureau. And some of the elements, and you'll probably see in our subsequent flash reports, where we're going to be recommending some elements within the Capitol Police to be moved over to that intelligence bureau. It needs to be elevated to a bureau level. With that said, they need additional training within the analysts who are going through the intelligence as it comes in, being trained to be able to read it, understand it, disseminate it, and having the knowledge on what. An example, intelligence is like a puzzle. You get bits and pieces and you've got to formulate a picture. In all my years of experience in doing leads and advances for the president's detail, I've never saw a intelligence document that's going to say, this is exactly what's going to happen on this date and here's where it is going to be. It's always something where you have to read in between the lines, disseminate, and you have to have trained professional analysts to be able to do that. Training is another. Training is critical to have in a department. Think of training as your locomotive that's going to pull the rest of the department along. That's your foundation. If you have a strong foundation in training that are professionalized, trained, and all these other units that we have, whether it be CERT, K9, and other, those are all housed in the Office of Training. I know it's called Training Services Bureau, but simplicity, it's Office of Training. You need to have that standalone training that is going to be comprehensive and a full service training bureau. And again, that would fall into a lot of other different things with the training, from the highest level training down to the bloodborne pathogen training. They control any and all aspects of training. Nobody does their own training, their own thing, keeps their own records. It's all done by training.
Very good. The gentleman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Bolton, how well prepared do you think the Capitol Police force is now to respond to your suggestions to assimilate these proposals and then to put them into action?
Well, according to, I guess, the press releases that the department is appreciative of my recommendations and look forward to working with the committees and the board to implement those recommendations. They acknowledge there's a lot of work to be done, as we all, I think, are acknowledging that there is a lot of work ahead of us, and we need to look for ways to combine all our efforts into one singular goal.
Do you have confidence that the changes are going to be implemented in time to deal with the threats that are obviously being posed to the U.S. Capitol and to Congress? So someone sent me an article, a political science article, about how the single most effective predictor of whether there's going to be a successful coup against the government is whether there was a recent unsuccessful coup against the government. And so, I mean, there's just an insurrection where they got to the inside of our building, the inside of our operation. And I want to know whether this is an emergency situation or you think that we're okay for now as they implement the recommendations you've made.
What I can speak to in that regard, sir, is that I believe in the rank and file, the officers, the men and women of this department are going to do the best of their ability to keep us safe. Regardless, every day they're going to get up, put on that badge, and assume their posts. It's up to us to make sure they have the tools and training to accomplish that. But I have confidence in these men and women here at the Capitol Police, those officers, to accomplish the mission.
Well, I agree with that completely. A lot of these people are my constituents who live in Montgomery and Frederick and Carroll County in Maryland. Officer Dunn, whose performance I invoked at the impeachment trial of former President Trump, and who has been widely quoted in the media, he performed really heroic service that day, and he was emblematic of hundreds and hundreds of officers who battled under basically medieval style conditions of people coming in and attacking, punching and kicking and stabbing and spearing with sticks and signs and you name it, bear spray and mace and all of this. But that underscores my concern, because they fought their hearts out for us as patriots to defend the Congress and the country on January the 6th, before, and that there's no doubt they would do it again. But we owe them a rapid transformation of the culture, the intelligence operation, and the operational capability of the Capitol Police. So I guess just to try one more time, I mean, do you think that the force is actually ready to assimilate, the magnitude of the suggestions you're making, and then to make these changes in time to deal with the next set of threats?
I believe the leadership within the Capitol Police are certainly open and willing to take our recommendations to heart and to make the changes. I think they're moving towards that. The good sign, there has not been any information that has come my way to indicate otherwise.
Okay. All right. And you also found no suggestion in any of your investigation that there were any kind of deliberate attempts to undermine the response of the Capitol Police on January 6th, did you?
That's correct, sir. We have not come across any information that would support that kind of allegations and or information that would present that.
So you found a lack of preparedness, a lack of training, some of these structural failures relating to the CDU and so on, but no reason to think that there was a deliberate effort on the Capitol Police essentially to let the marauders and insurrectionists have their way at different points.
That's correct. No, absolutely no information that would suggest that.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back to you.
Thank you. As